So again, welcome everyone. I'm Gwen McNallen, the president of the Laguna Beach Dem Club. And I am so delighted and extremely honored to introduce our very special guest this evening. For most of us, he needs no introduction, but I will give one anyway. He is one of the most important legal scholars of our time. Irwin Shimirinsky is the founding dean at the UCI School of Law in our own backyard here, and is now the dean at Berkeley Law School. Over his academic career, his courses have focused on constitutional law, First Amendment law, federal courts, criminal procedure, and appellate litigation. He also has frequently argued appellate cases, including several in the US Supreme Court. He has authored 10 influential books, and the most recent one, just released, is now on the top of my reading list, Presumed Guilty: How the Supreme Court Empowered the Police and Subverted Civil Rights. One of my other favorite books was published by him in 2018, We the People, a progressive reading of the Constitution for the 21st century. As Democrats, I know we all appreciate his strong stance to defend the rights of all people, and in doing so, believes we must consider the US Constitution a deeply flawed document and should not be making legal decisions by interpreting it as originally written. I was so inspired after reading We the People that I even shared it on Facebook, inviting everyone to read it. And I shared his final word to all progressives at the end of the book. When I look back at my post today, and I found that, I thought it was so apropos for what we are, where we are today. He said, we have only one real choice: to fight harder and better than ever before. That could not be more true than right now. The fight is definitely before us with this recall attempt of Governor Newsome. We are delighted to have Dean Irwin Shimirinsky with us tonight to inspire us to beat this recall attempt. He will tell us why he thinks this recall election may be unconstitutional, how this recall process came to be in California law, and whether or not we should consider modifications to it. Dean Chemerinsky, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the very kind introduction. Thank you for inviting me back. I especially wish we could be in person. I had the chance to come and be with you in Orange County, but I'm glad at least you have the chance to talk to you through this medium. I'll speak for a few minutes, but want to use most of my time with you to answer any questions you have. Finally, next Tuesday, September 14th, there will be the recall election. It seems like it's been stretching on for so long. The recall stems from amendments to the California Constitution over a century ago. They were part of the progressive movement. It was thought of a way to give people control over their government. If government officials weren't performing adequately, we could recall them and replace them. It was the same progressive movement that led to amendments to the California Constitution to allow laws and constitutional amendments to be adopted through the initiative process. One of the things that's different in California compared to many other states that have recall provisions is there's no criteria enumerated in terms of what would justify a recall. There are 19 states that have recall provisions where people can do what we're going to be doing next Tuesday. Alaska is one of those 19 states. Alaska says that a state official like a governor can be recalled for lack of fitness, incompetence, neglect of duty, or corruption. In California, it doesn't take meeting any particular criterion. All it takes is 12% of the people signing petitions to get on the ballot, and then a simple majority wanting to replace the person as governor. As you know by now, the way in which the ballot is structured is we vote on two questions. And my guess is that many of you, like me, have already voted and turned in your ballot. If not, if you go to the polls next Tuesday, you'll vote as we did on two questions. First, should Governor Gavin Newsom be removed from office? That's decided by majority vote. If a majority want to remove him, he is then removed. He can't remain for the remainder of this term as governor. If he's removed, we have to vote on a second question, and we vote simultaneously on both, and that is who should replace Gavin Newsom. And there are 46 candidates on the ballot to choose among. It's less than what we had in 2003, then there were over 150 candidates on the ballot to replace the governor, Gray Davis. One question that I get asked a lot is, should you vote on the second question if you vote no on the recall of Newsome? The Newsome campaign apparently has encouraged people not to vote on the second question. With all respect for that view, I disagree and strongly disagree. The reality is, when you don't vote, you leave the choice to those who do vote. That's true in any election. If you don't vote on the second question, you're leaving the choice of who's to be governor to those who do vote on the second question. And there are differences among those 46 candidates. Now, I've also heard some say that it'd be better if Gavin Newsom is recalled to have the worst possible person chosen on the second question, because that person is less likely to win re-election in November 2022. I don't share that view. So much can be done by whoever's governor between now and November 2022 or January 23, when the person would be sworn in as governor. Think of the appointments to the California courts, to the California agencies. Think of the role of the governor in setting the budget for the state. Or one of the things that makes this election and recall particularly important is Senator Dianne Feinstein is 88 years old. If she were to leave office between now and January of 2023, whoever would be replacing Gavin Newsom would be the one who would pick her successor. Obviously, if she leaves office and Gavin Newsom is there, the governor, Gavin Newsom, would pick her successor. If a Republican is the governor of California and a Republican picks Dianne Feinstein's successor, it's not just that California loses a Democratic senator, it's the Democrats will lose control of the Senate. This, of course, is enormously troubling for so many reasons. Joe Biden wouldn't get any justices or judges confirmed and wouldn't be able to accomplish his legislative agenda. So I have voted on the second question. I simply looked at who among the candidates would be least awful. None of them are who I'd want to be the governor of California. And you can decide for yourself who that would be. I look to see who newspapers that I respect, like the LA Times, endorse, but I do believe it's important to vote on the second question as well. You can't write in whoever you want. In order to write somebody in, it has to be one of 6 individuals who qualified as a write-in candidate. I've heard many say, well, can you write in Gavin Newsom? No, because he's ineligible. If he's recalled, you can't write in the lieutenant governor. And so a write-in doesn't really accomplish anything. I'm very troubled by this whole process of recall. I think this is a calculated effort by Republicans in the state to try to win the governorship when they have no chance of winning it in a general election with the kind of candidates they're nominating. The thought of the Republicans is that a recall election has low turnout. It tends especially to get voters who are upset and dissatisfied to come out. And this is their way of then getting a Republican chosen when a Republican doesn't have a chance of beating Gavin Newsom in November of 2022. I worry more generally that those who lose elections are increasingly turning to recalls. There's a recall effort with regard to Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon. There's a recall county with regard to San Francisco District Attorney Chase Boudin. When you think of Robert's Rules of Order for any meeting, in order to make a motion for reconsideration, you had to be in the majority. Somebody who's on the losing side can't make a motion for reconsideration. But now with recall elections, those who lose in a close election have every incentive to try just to have a recall. I've argued in a couple of op-eds that the way the current recall is structured is unconstitutional. Aaron Edlin, who's a professor at Berkeley Law School, and my colleague and I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times and then an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times. And the basis of our argument is simple. If Gavin Newsom loses next Tuesday, he'll end up with about 48 or 49% of the vote. The polls aren't quite as close now as they were a month ago, but when it looked like there was a realistic chance he might lose, it was always thought he would still end up with 48 or 49% of the vote. In terms of the polls on the second question, the leading candidate has 18% of the vote. So if there is a recall, the candidate with 18% will become governor, and the person favored by 48 or 49% will lose and be replaced as governor. That makes no sense. And we argue it's also unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has long said that every person should have the same chance to influence the outcome of the election. Every person in California should have the same chance to influence who's the governor. But the way it's structured, those favored by 18% get more than twice as much influence as those who favor by 48% Gavin Newsom staying in office. There have been some lawsuits filed since our op-eds, but none have advanced this theory. I can tell you that the Newsom campaign has aggressively discouraged filing of lawsuits on this theory. They believe that they're sufficiently ahead in the polls that lawsuits would just be a distraction. I can also tell you that I know that there are those who are preparing lawsuits after the election should Gavin Newsom lose on this theory. The difficulty then, of course, is after the election, will the court be willing to undo it? In November of 2000, I went to Palm Beach County, Florida, to argue on behalf of the Gore campaign that there should be an order for a new election in Palm Beach, that hundreds of people who thought they were voting for Al Gore ended up voting for Pat Buchanan just because of the strange way the so-called butterfly ballot was structured. The argument lasted for 3 hours. It was televised live on CNN. And the judge ruled against me, saying, once the election is held, I can't order a new election. So I worry that if Newsom loses, it'll be too late then to do anything, but the lawsuits will be filed. I expect at this moment in time that Newsom will be able to withstand the recall effort and remain as governor. That's what the polls show. But we've also learned as recently as November of 2020 that the polls can be wildly inaccurate. So as the Democratic Club, I can say to you, be sure you vote. Be sure you encourage everyone you know to vote. We can't be complacent, take chances. Remember, in 2003, not only was Gray Davis recalled and only 43% of the voters supported him, but Arnold Schwarzenegger won and became the governor. He had 46% of the vote. So what I was concerned about here didn't manifest itself there. Schwarzenegger ended up with more votes than wanted Davis to stay in office, but we just can't take the chance. I think it's so important after this recall effort that we change California law with regard to the recall. It's so flawed that it could lead to this. Let me suggest some of the reforms. First, increase the number of signatures necessary to get a recall on the ballot. This is set by statute, not the Constitution. In California, only 12% of the number of people who voted at the last election need signed petitions for recall. In most other states with recalls, it's 33%. One state is 40%. It's far too easy to get a recall on the ballot. Second, we should require bipartisan support for a recall effort. This goes back to what I said a moment ago. Robert's Rules of Order say you only get to make a motion for reconsideration if you are on the winning side. Only about 9% of the signatures on the recall petitions came from registered Democrats. That makes no sense that Republicans who lost decisively now get to have a recall. Third, if there is going to be a recall, we should make it harder for candidates to get on the ballot for the second question. Right now, it basically just takes 1,000 signatures and you're on the ballot. That's how we ended up with 46 candidates there, or 150 candidates last time. democracy doesn't work well when you have that happen. Fourth, the recall should be held at the next regularly scheduled election date. A special election on September 14th with nothing else on the ballot is likely to lead to low voter turnout. So it would be much more sensible to have the recall the next time we're having an election. It could be the next primary election in the spring, and that would work. And finally, we should change what happens if there's a successful recall. We should say, if there's a successful recall, the governor, the lieutenant governor becomes the governor, rather than have a choice among people on a second question. Have the lieutenant governor become the governor. If the governor leaves office for any reason, the lieutenant governor takes over. We should do the same with regard to a recall. That's what exists in most states. That latter change would require amending the California Constitution, but the others are all by statute. And I think it's important, if Gavin Newsom withstands the recall effort, to not be complacent. We've had 2 recalls now within an 18-year period. There hadn't been a gubernatorial recall before that. In fact, we just had the first recall of a judge in California for the first time since the early 1930s. We shouldn't have government by recall, so we need these kinds of changes. I promised I'd save time for questions. We've got about 10 minutes, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dean. That was very enlightening, very informative. I'm going to pass it on to Alex Runagi, who's going to handle the Q&A with some questions from the chat.
Thank you. So we'll start off with a question. What if Feinstein were to retire right when Newsom sees that he's about to lose, and then could Newsom replace himself to appoint her before the results of the election are certified?
It's 30 days to certify the election. Gavin Newsom remains governor during the time for that. And so if Senator Feinstein were to resign during those 30 days, Gavin Newsom can pick her successor. In fact, I have an op-ed ready to go. If next Tuesday night it looks like Gavin Newsom is going to lose, I'm sending off my op-ed urging Senator Feinstein to retire immediately so that Gavin Newsom can replace her. As I say, this isn't just about whether the Democrats have a Senate seat from California. This is about whether the Democrats keep control of the Senate altogether. Could Gavin Newsom pick himself? We don't know the answer to that question. It's just like the question that came up last fall. Could Donald Trump pardon himself? To my knowledge, no governor has ever tried to do that. Certainly, I think if Gavin Newsom, after being recalled, tried to pardon himself, there would be an outcry. Not that he listens to me about anything, but if he's recalled, I'd urge him to pick anybody other than Gavin Newsom. And I worry a court would invalidate his picking himself. And we don't want to tie it up in litigation beyond the 30 days.
Another question, who did you vote for to replace Newsom and why?
I didn't say intentionally because I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing from that list. None of them are people I want to be governor of California. Let me put it this way. I was influenced a good deal by the Los Angeles Times editorial in terms of who the Los Angeles Times endorses. And what I was really looking for was the least bad choice among bad choices. I've known Larry Elder for a long time. I used to be a guest all the time on his KBC radio show. It frightens me to death that Larry Elder could become the governor of California, that we would have a Trump Republican. So obviously I didn't vote for Larry Elder. But I think rather than my sound like I'm endorsing a candidate, I'd encourage everyone to do the research, to look at who newspapers endorse. And I say I was particularly influenced by the LA Times.
Gore won a majority of votes over Bush, but lost by the Electoral College. So why is the majority not a factor in presidential elections? And I guess maybe to take it further, are you in favor of getting rid of the Electoral College?
Let me answer in two parts. First, why the Electoral College is constitutional. And second, do I favor eliminating the Electoral College? The Electoral College is part of the Constitution. And so it's hard to say that something in the Constitution is unconstitutional. I can make such an argument. I advance it in the book that was mentioned, We the People. And the idea is that the amendments to the Constitution modify the text. The amendments to the Constitution create a requirement for equal protection, and that makes the Electoral College superseded by those amendments. But I don't think any court will accept that argument. So the Electoral College is part of the Constitution, which is why it's not unconstitutional. But I strongly favor eliminating the Electoral College. Think about it. 6 times in American history, twice just in this century, the candidate who lost the popular vote became president. And it almost happened again in 2020. If 49,000 votes in 3 states had come out differently, Donald Trump would be in the White House now. The problem is, to amend the Constitution requires approval of 2/3 of both houses of Congress in 3/4 of the states. And there's no way that the states that benefit from the Electoral College will ever vote for a constitutional amendment to change it. But I think it is inconsistent with those basic principles of democracy to say that the person who loses becomes the president.
So are there any mechanisms that you think could be possible? I know that 2/3 of the states might be unlikely, but I think there's other proposals of like 270 electoral college votes of states. They make a compact. Is that something that you think could be possible?
I think the National Popular Vote Compact is very clever, where states would say, we'll give our electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. Problems. No red state has signed on to the compact, so there's not enough states to trigger it. It's also unenforceable. Imagine that Texas, hypothetically, had signed the compact. And imagine in November 2020, if Texas went for Biden, he'd become president. But if they voted for Trump, who won Texas, Trump would be president. No way Texas is going to honor its promise to that compact. I also think there's a concern that the compact is unconstitutional. So I wish it would work. I think we've got to get rid of the Electoral College, but I don't have a way around it.
You've written recently about some of the decisions by the Supreme Court in the Texas abortion, about the Texas abortion law. Can you talk about that, and then more broadly talk about what you think is the best way for us to move forward with the Supreme Court? Should there be reforms?
Sure. In fact, I have an op-ed in today's Los Angeles Times about the Texas law and why it's so dangerous. Roe versus Wade said states can't prohibit abortion before viability, the time at which the fetus can survive outside the womb. Medicine tells us that's the 23rd or 24th week of pregnancy. The Texas law prohibits abortion at about the 6th week of pregnancy, a time when many women don't even know that they're pregnant. The Texas law is clearly and blatantly unconstitutional. Texas created its law in an unusual way. Rather than have the Attorney General or anyone from the state enforce the law, it authorizes private civil suits against anybody who aids or abets a woman getting an abortion. And Texas says, you can't sue our Attorney General or any state officers to enjoin this because we don't play a role in enforcing it. It's private civil suits. That shouldn't matter at all. The law is unconstitutional government action, and how it's enforced doesn't make it less unconstitutional. And what I argue in the LA Times piece today is this would put so many other constitutional rights down. The Supreme Court said that gay and lesbian couples have a right to marry. But could a state now say, we're going to make anyone who performs a same-sex wedding civilly liable? Could a state adopt a law that says anyone who criticizes the governor of the state is civilly liable? There's no stopping point to this. I was very upset last Wednesday night when the Supreme Court 5-4 refused to enjoin the Texas law. The only way to understand that is there are 5 justices on the current court that want to overrule Roe versus Wade, and they're just unwilling to block a law that prohibits abortions even the 6th week of pregnancy. I would like to see reforms in the Supreme Court. I would favor increasing the size of the Supreme Court. It's to restore ideological balance. We've seen court packing from the Republicans in the last several years. The way they blocked Merrick Garland from getting a hearing or a vote, the hypocrisy of rushing through Amy Coney Barrett. But here's another statistic to think about. Between 1960 and 2020, there were 32 years with a Republican president and 28 years with a Democratic president. Almost even. In fact, in 2024, it'll be 32 and 32. But between 1960 and 2020, Republican presidents put 15 justices on the Supreme Court, and Democratic presidents put only 8 justices on the Supreme Court. I would want to expand the size of the Supreme Court to overcome that. But it's not going to happen, because to increase the size of the Supreme Court requires that a bill pass both the House and the Senate. And we know Senate Republicans would filibuster that. And at least so far, there's a couple of Democratic senators who are adamant they won't change the filibuster.
I have a question. How are you such a prolific writer? How are you able to write about so many topics? Can you give us advice on that?
Well, one aspect of that is specialization. Everything that I write about relates to constitutional law in some way. And so the op-ed in today's paper is about constitutional law. The op-eds about the recall were about constitutional law. My new book that came out last week, Presumed Guilty, is about the Supreme Court and the police. So there's a real advantage of being a specialist.
And then I'll just end it with, what do you think is going to happen on Tuesday, and what should we do going forward with this recall, and then also beyond to reform the process, if you want to close us out with that?
Sure. I realize I'm repeating myself, but I think the most important thing is please be sure you vote. Please be sure that you encourage everyone you know to vote. If Democrats come out and vote in the recall election, this isn't going to be close in California. The only chance the Republicans have is low turnout so that those who oppose Gavin Newsom come out in greater numbers than the number of Democratic voters in the state. We can't end up with a Larry Elder as governor. I'm reluctant to say what I think is going to happen because I don't want it to discourage anyone from voting. The current polls show Gavin Newsom having about 58%, or only 42% supporting the recall. But as I said earlier, I remember the polls in 2016. I remember constantly, despite that, looking at the polls before the November 2020 election to reassure myself, and those polls turned out to be so inaccurate. So I wouldn't trust the polls. The only thing we can do is to go out and vote. And then I think we need to pressure the California legislature to change the recall procedure. We shouldn't be going through this again in a couple of years.
Agreed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dean Chemerinsky. It was
Thank you.
incredible having you here. I mean, you are a hero of mine, and I know from many people on this call and around the entire country. So
thank you.
We really
You're
appreciate
so sweet,
it.
and thank you for having me.
All right.
Truly my pleasure.
Oh, no, ours for sure. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, he ended on such a powerful note, and it's exactly what we're going into. Make sure you vote, and make sure that you get everyone you know to vote. But before we jump to that portion of our night, I believe we have a couple special guests that just wanted to say a couple words as well on the same topic. Ada Briseño, are you available to jump on right now?
I am. Good evening, Democrats. It's really great to see California back home. But I just want to say, on behalf of so many Democrats doing on this recall, Democrats across our whole state will carry us through. We will make sure that as many Democrats as we can get to the to turn in their ballots, that they will do so. I think you all saw that our vice president was in Northern California, so that was very exciting. I want you to know that next week, we don't know if it's in Southern California or Northern California, but we will have our president here because this is urgent and we cannot roll back what we've worked so hard for. They're coming after your values and my values. You saw that the governor was here in our this last weekend with Labor and the party and our elected officials. We keep pushing through with op-eds, with press conferences, knocking on doors, doing all those things that you've been doing. I want to invite you this Saturday at 9 a.m. We are having another press conference and we're getting out the vote. We're walking, so please join us at the headquarters in Orange. We will be there. And we will be walking every single day or phone banking, whatever you can do. We need you. I want to thank you once again and let you know that this recall is crucial for the next 7 recalls that might be on the books, just in Orange County. You know that, or you may have heard that we have some recalls in Huntington Beach. We have some recalls in our school board. We have actually recalls on our board of supervisors. So we have got to defeat governor, the recall against the governor, and all of them here in Orange County. Look, I want to encourage you to make sure that you vote no on the recall. I know you know that, but I want to encourage you not to vote on the second question. And the reason why is this is an unusual election, okay? You know that it's a power grab. But when we vote for a governor, we vote for one person only. And our vote, our no vote, is our vote for our governor. So please don't touch the second question. When in each election, there's only one candidate and only one of them win. Our no vote is our vote for the governor. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for dedicating so much time to the governor, to the anti-recall. And I want to thank you for all you will do headed up until September 14th.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ada, so much for being here with us.
Bravo,
For those of you
Ada.
who don't know Ada Briseño, that's the Democratic Party of Orange County Chair. She is our fearless leader here in Orange County. Thank you so much for being here tonight. All right, I'm going to just ask Aviva, has Senator Min arrived yet? I know he just got out of session late tonight.
I have not seen him yet.
Okay, then Aviva, we're going to jump to our next step here is relational organizing. Eva has a fantastic PowerPoint to really give us all a bigger picture of what this, what we can do as individuals just by simply sharing and talking to people we know. It's aside from the phone banking, which is, another effort, aside from text banking, this is actual people we know and that we're connected with. And I think we'd all be surprised. Your network is a lot larger than you think. So Aviva's going to give us the power in relational organizing.
Okay, great. So we've heard a lot tonight about how we cannot be complacent and about the power of not only voting ourselves, but activating the people that we know to vote. So we're going to do that tonight. We're going to do that as a group with the support of one another. I'm really excited about it. We have over 100 people on the call tonight. If we can all reach out to at least one person, ideally more, and then encourage them to reach out to the people they know, that impact just magnifies and magnifies and magnifies. So really want you to think about your own power in this situation and in this recall. Kind of just to echo what Dean Chemerinsky said, this is what our recall ballots that have been returned so far look like. Only 29% of them have been returned. We need a lot more. And then on the right is a breakdown of the ballots that have been returned by political party, by race, and by age. I know these graphs are hard to read, so Nia, can you go to the next slide and I'll break it down for you all? So our main takeaways is, as Dean Chemerinsky said, Democrats are currently leading in the polls, but Republicans are expected to show a strong in-person turnout. So we really, really can't be complacent here. And as we all know, and as Dean Chemerinsky just said, and as I very firmly believe, polls aren't everything, they're very little. So we cannot be complacent here. So far, independents, people of color, and people under 50 years of age are underrepresented in return ballots. So these are groups that we need to be thinking about in addition to ourselves and every other group out there. And then for our local community, for Orange County, Democrats and independents are needed to show a strong turnout, not only for the sake of stopping the recall right now, but also to set the pace for next November. You know, if we can start getting people riled up now, we can count on them better for next year when we have more elections to really fight in. So just something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. So we're doing relational organizing right now to stop the recall. And I'm going to take you through it step by step. But first, let's go to the next slide and talk about just really quickly what relational organizing is. It's the practice of leaning on the people you already know to build collective power. Click again, Nia. In other words, this is asking the people you know to contribute to the causes that you care about. Next slide, please. So this form of organizing is super persuasive. In the 2020 election, a text message from a friend increased the likelihood to vote by 8.3%, and this far exceeds turnout effects from traditional organizing methods like calling strangers, knocking on strangers' doors. Don't get me wrong, these methods are great. You should still do them. You should do them as part of the recall and all future elections. But we can really see that relational organizing is far more effective and something that we need to add to our repertoire. So next slide, please. Real quick, this is what an example of relational organizing can look like. This is a text that our club vice president, Alex, sent me last year in October 2020, reminding me to return my ballot for the general election. Alex and I know each other super well and are always in each other's business, so we're okay doing this more insistent form of reminders. I'm going to take you through a more structured and maybe slightly gentler process for how to do relational organizing. So next slide, please. So let's do it. We're gonna use our power right now. I would love if each of you could grab either a piece of paper and a pen or your phone or something else to write with. If you have your computer open and want to do a Word document, that would be great. Just take a moment to grab that and let's go to the next slide and I'll start talking while you do that. Next slide, please, Nia. Thank you. So these are the steps we're going to go through: focusing our efforts, listing our contacts, collecting resources, preparing what we'll say, and then call, in this case, texting. And then if you want to call and meet your contacts, you can do that as well. So next slide, please. So we're going to start by focusing our efforts. We don't just want to reach out to anyone we know. We want to reach out to the people that we think will likely contribute to our cause. So in this case, most importantly, we want to reach out to people who are registered to vote in California, first of all, and then likely or certain to vote no. So this is obviously primarily Democrats and independents. It's also helpful if you want to reach out to people who, like I said, are underrepresented in current return ballots. So youth and people of color, or people who are likely to forget or need help filling out or mailing their ballot. But again, really most important is thinking of people who are registered California voters and likely or certain to vote no on the recall. Next slide, please. So next we want to list our contacts, and this is what your piece of paper and pen or your phone or whatever writing device you have is for. And we want to list our contacts who fit those criteria that I just listed. So here's a useful acronym for you to think of people that you want to reach out to. You can do friends, relatives, associates, neighbors, kids. So let's all take a few minutes to think of people in your life that you want to contact. I would love if you could think of 5 to 10, but even just a few is great. Again, we have 100 people on the line, so that kind of reach is really impactful. So let's all just take a moment to list people on whatever writing you have that you would like to reach out to. Sorry, I'm letting people into the meeting as I speak. So I'll give you all a minute to do that. Yeah, and then I'd love, Mia, if you could go to the next slide. As you're listing people, if you want to put one or two of the people that you plan to contact in the chat, I'm going to reach out to my friend Irene. She's from an immigrant family. I want to check that she's voting and that her actually four relatives are voting as well. So I'm reaching out to Irene and her family. Feel free to put in the chat one of the people that you're planning to reach out to, whether that's a friend or a colleague or anything else. I would love to hear who we're reaching out to. This is awesome to see. I'm seeing friends, relatives, neighbors, hairstylists, colleagues, friends that recently moved to California. This is awesome. Feel free to keep putting those contacts in the chat. Laura is going to use the outreach circle in the Newsome campaign to contact 138 people. That is amazing. She has all of us beat there. This is wonderful to see. Thank you all. So next slide, please, Mia. So the next thing we're going to do is collect our resources. This just means collecting the information and the sites that we need to help recruit your contacts to your cause. So in this case, this is really all the resources you need. This is what you need to know. They should vote no on the first question. They can leave the second question blank if they want to. It's best to vote by mail. They can find their ballot drop-off location really easily online. They can track their ballot once they've mailed it or dropped it off, and they can also vote in person on September 14th, which is just in 6 days. So that's coming up really, really quickly. So this is just information that you have in case the person that you're reaching out to asks you any questions. You want to be able to answer their questions really quickly and easily. Okay, next slide. Okay. Finally, we're going to reach out. Just prepare what you'll say and reach out to a few of your people. And let's do it right now while we're all together and can support each other. I wrote a sample message that you could send, and I'll drop that in the chat in case you want to copy paste it. Next slide, please, Mia. And there's also a more casual template message that I've developed in case you want to use that. So if we have time, Gwen, I would love for us to take a few minutes to everyone at least try to send one text. I'm going to text Irene right now. If you can send multiple, that's great. Let's do it.
Right. Sounds good. Also important to think about like young people that are Instagram influencers. I just thought of my colleague at work. She has over 40,000 followers on Instagram. Now, not all of them are in California, but what a great thing.
Holy
for her
cow.
to do. Right, I know she's incredible. And so we need the young people coming out to vote. We know based on the demographics that the Biden campaign, when you look at the Pew Research Center with the votes that came back, it was young people that never voted before that actually helped get him over the line too, right? So it's in their 20s. So for everyone on here, your kids as friends, make sure you inspire them to talk to their friends. And I inspired my stepdaughter to post it on her Instagram to tell all of her friends too, because she's got a lot of followers. She's like 500 just with her friends, and they are all in California. So really important to just know every time we share it, you're sharing with more and more people, and you expand and ask them to share. That's how we're going to win this. Good. Did everybody get their texts off?
Yeah, feel free to write done in the chat and encourage one another as you go through this process. And Nia, would you mind sharing the slides again real quick, and I'll just wrap us up?
Yep, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties.
No worries. Let me know if you need me to do it.
So as we are finishing up, thank you all for doing that, and to continue to do that between now and September 14th. Anybody you think of. I mean, I'm a talker, so I talk to people everywhere. So especially if I know what their leanings are, but I'm inviting everyone, and I'll ask them, hey, have you returned your ballot yet? You know, if I'm in the grocery store and I see a friend, I'm going to ask them. So it's really important they do. Okay, so While we do that, I also noticed that we have our guest has arrived. I'd love for Senator Dave Min to say a few words to everyone and give us a little bit more words of inspiration before we talk about just other events that are upcoming and go through a little checklist to close out our meeting today. So Senator Aviva, are you ready or do you need more on this?
I was just going to say really quickly, Gwen basically said it all. Keep doing your relational organizing. Attend one of our upcoming events that Gwen is going to get into. And please mail your ballot if you haven't done so already. And we're here to assist you. So just let it. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Aviva. Fantastic presentation. Well done. Inspiring me. And we can use that whole platform every time we are going to try and get succeed in helping a candidate get elected. The same type of work. All right, so Senator Dave Min, if you are here, we would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Gwen. And I'm really sorry for a lot of reasons that I missed. The real special guest, the top constitutional law scholar in the country, and would have loved to. And my old boss, I should add. I would love to have heard his words of wisdom as we navigate through really a very trying time with the courts, with the likely end of Roe v. Wade, with a very aggressive federal judiciary that has been, very extremist in overturning a lot of well-settled law in a lot of areas, and also his thoughts on the recall. And I should just say, we just got out of session a few minutes ago, and so I was unable to make it earlier. I think we got through about 120 bills today. So another 2 days, hopefully just 2 days more of this. But, I'll just say that the recall is critically important. And I know you were just talking about that, Aviva. The stakes really could not be higher. And I want to tell you why, which is that if in that unfathomable situation that Gavin does get recalled and we end up with Larry Elder as our governor, which is almost certain to happen based on the polling if Newsome's recalled, he has extraordinary power with the executive branch to change policy in a lot of ways that we can't really immediately control in the legislature. So first of all, big bills will just grind to a standstill. We can't expect Larry Elder to sign any of our bills into law. Whether that's on environmental progress, whether that's on schools, whether that's on infrastructure investment, any of the ambitious things we're trying to do this year, they will all be stopped. And we may have the 2/3 majorities to overturn some of those vetoes, but we really, that will take time and we can't rely on that. But also, the governor has power to, end mask mandates, to just open things up completely in the state, to change course 100% and make us look like Florida or Texas or Georgia. And that would have, I think, disastrous consequences in our ability to try to contain COVID in the ways that have been effective in the state. He can influence a woman's right to receive reproductive health care in a lot of different ways through executive orders. So there's a lot he can do. And you can look to Arnold Schwarzenegger as a precedent. Arnold was able to get a lot done, and he was not nearly as extreme as Larry Elder. But he was able to control that power of the executive. So we would be facing, I think, really a tough situation for the next year and a half if Larry Elder became the governor. I think there's also important national stakes, right? I mean, if California ends up recalling Newsome, what does that do for enthusiasm around the country as we head into the 2022 midterms? What does that do for our ability to hold the House and try to get real progress done? We've seen the Republicans at the federal level do everything they can to stop Biden and to stop his ambitious agenda. And from my perch in the California state legislature, we are really at a crossroads right now as a country, as a state. Even in Orange County, we see a lot of people that are being rallied to this cause of ignorance, of hatred, of racism, of know-nothingism. And the policy directions that they want us to follow, I think, are disastrous for the United States. They're about disinvestment. They're about, regressive policies in a lot of ways. And I think you can look at Texas as an example of where the United States might go if we lose the Senate and House and Joe Biden's ability to get things done is hobbled. So I think this really does have national implications. And I should say that it is a lot closer than we think. And I know that we've seen some polls that say that Gavin Newsom's winning by a lot. But this election is really all about turnout. And right now, Democrats have more turnout. But what every political expert I've talked to has said is that the Republicans are going to come out on election day. It's kind of become reversed. In the old days, Democrats showed up on election day and we waited in line, and Republicans were the mail-in ballot folks. But because of Trump, singularly, Republicans have come to distrust the mail. And you can expect that like a lion's share of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents are going to come out on election day. And we are expecting a huge surge of Republican votes. And so our job right now is to pad our lead as much as possible so that it can withstand that Republican bump. And by the way, if we happen to win by 30 points, that's awesome, because then we are sending a message to the Republicans that this type of shenanigans, these types of shenanigans that they're continually trying to pull with recalls are unacceptable, and California is going to reject them. I mean, even in Orange County right now, we're seeing in the city of Orange, in the city of Huntington Beach, we're seeing recall efforts. We're seeing this around the state right now. They are, they see something that's an advantage for them. They can't win in regular elections. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to exploit the recall where they can get a very low turnout electorate, where they can get their fired up base to vote. And their thought is, we can get extremist candidates elected in elections where we can't win in a regular election cycle. So we have to send a message to them. But I would assume right now that Gavin's losing by 2 points and work from there, because we got to work our tails off. We don't know how big that Republican surge is going to be on election day. So everything you guys are doing, and I just want to say, by the way, it's great to see you all. It's been a long time. And I'm sorry, I thought this might be in person at this point, and I know I missed your picnic, but we're being very cautious with COVID protocols right now. But I do hope we can get a chance to meet up in person at some point soon. But you guys are awesome, and to have 60-something people out on a Wednesday night, September 3rd for no particular reason, that's awesome, and I think a sign of how vibrant this club is. And Laguna, we know, is just a very, very special place. So thank you for all you're doing. I'd be remiss, by the way, if I didn't mention, we are having a recall phone bank and rally tomorrow evening, starting at 5. I'm going to try to be there as much as I can. We're going to be in session, so I'm going to have to duck out. But we just got news that Attorney General Rob Monta will be there to speak for us as a special guest, representing the governor, who unfortunately can't make it. But we'd love for you to join us. We're going to do 2 hours of phone banking after that. And the number one priority for the governor's team right now is to do phone banking, because they feel like that's the best way to turn out voters. And of course, texting is also great. But everything we can do right now to move the needle, even a little bit, every vote might matter.
That's great. Great. Thank you so much, Senator Mann. And we completely understand you not being able to make the whole meeting and the picnic, but we are so grateful that you are here today. And you are so right in two things. Number one, that we can't believe the polls. Number two, we need to win by a huge number so that we can send a message across the country. This isn't just about California. Obviously, it does impact us, but it's so much bigger than that. If we were to lose, the wind in the sails that it would put in the Republican sails would be devastating, and they would gain momentum in other states to continue this kind of effort, right? So we have to send a message loud and clear. So we had a wonderful group of people here tonight, over 120 at one point when the dean was on. It was really great. And a lot of people taking this action step. So we're building on the relational organizing, which I think is really powerful when people ask people they know, right? And we all know so many people. But you're doing, again, such great work, Senator Mann. We're so happy to be here. And we were also going to share your event next. We're going to talk about what's upcoming. And your event was the first on the list of what you have going tomorrow. So we hope we get a lot of our team, our people, on your phone banking tomorrow as well. But
that's awesome. And I have a couple questions I'm happy to answer. I see in the chat if you like, but I'm also happy to kick it over.
Sure. Why don't you take the one about the possible statutes that if you're working on?
Yeah, I see one about is there pending legislation to change statutes per Erwin's recommendation. I don't know what his recommendation is because I missed that. But we are looking at some legislation. We just actually earlier today passed Josh Newman's legislation that would ban the use of paid signature gatherers, which is making it a lot easier to recall people across the state. I had a kinky idea where it was, maybe kinky is the wrong word, a wonky idea of, because Republicans are really looking at turnout differentials to try to win recalls, to just say, that you might need some, like say 30% of the voters that had voted in a previous election would have to vote for recall to get someone out. In other words, if I'm elected with 250,000 votes, you can't recall me with 20,000 votes. You need some percentage of that, because I think that would go a long ways to actually ensuring that recall is used the right way and not abused. There's some other ideas out there. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and Senator, that's exactly one of the things that that Dean Chemerinsky talked about. Was we were at 12% right now of the voters. That's our statute. We need to move it to 33 or 40%, which is typical in every other state for a recall election. So that number is too low. That's one of the statutes he's looking to promote.
But I think the problem here is that we probably need a constitutional amendment to make that happen. So Senator Newman and I were talking about a month ago, and I think we'll try to introduce a couple constitutional amendments next year. And we'll see where those goes. Obviously, those will have to go on the ballot, and people will have to vote on them. But we want to make the case that the recall is being abused, that it's not appropriate, and we'll see where things go from there.
That's a good step to get rid of the paid signature gatherers too. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Senator. Anything else? Otherwise,
no, it's great to see everybody, and you know, not to pull an Erwin here, but please, I'm just Dave. Please call me Dave. The title's very weighty. So great to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, we do too. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks,
Have a
Gwen.
good
Take
rest of your
care.
evening. Thanks so
Have
much.
a good night.
Good night. Okay, so now we're just going to recap with the announcements of what we have coming up. That in Nia Evans, you're going to tell the rest of our team.
Yeah, hi everyone. Wow, what an amazing evening. If you're not fired up about the recall, then you must not have been listening, because that was such an incredible presentation. So with that, we have a lot of really great events leading up to the recall that we want everyone to be aware of. We're going to be dropping links in the chat as I go through them. So as Dave mentioned, we have a phone banking event tomorrow night. A lot of people are going to be involved in that. Senator Dave Min, Katrina Foley, lots and lots and lots of people. So that's going to be a great event. If you like to phone bank, definitely check that out. That is, again, tomorrow night. And then Saturday, there are in-person events and phone banking events. So Saturday is the Stop the Recall Super Canvas Saturday. And that's going to be at the Democratic DPOC headquarters. And that's at 1916 West Chapman Avenue in Orange. That's going to be a great event. So definitely get there. They're going to have free t-shirts for the first 50 canvassers. Definitely a lot of fun things to look forward to on that day. And then on Sunday, we have our own event, our club, and that is a Get Out the Vote event. It's a neighborhood canvassing event. We will be at Bluebird Park from 10 to 1. If you want to come out and canvass with us, we're going to get people all set up. This is easy canvassing. This is only Democrats that have not turned in their ballots. So no difficult conversations. This is basically going and talking to your friends and making sure that they are getting out the vote. I think that's everything. I think hopefully the links are dropping in the chat so you can all partake. And I also just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who came out to the picnic. What an awesome event. We had such a great time. It was so great to be back in person with everyone. I want to thank personally the committee that worked so hard. Deb Engel, Becky Visconti, Mary Carter, Mary Clifford, Edie Tonkin, and Joy Dittburner. You guys were honestly so helpful and so amazing. And thank you so much to the board that was there day of, helping endlessly. Special shout out to Aviva, who probably got ridiculously sunburnt working that membership table, but she was cranking and we could not have done it without her. So thank you guys all so much. Honestly, it was such a great day. How amazing that we had all those great elected officials. I'm just in awe of it all. So much more fun stuff to come in the future, and hopefully we'll see everyone again in person soon.
Thank you, Nia. Perfect recap. Appreciate it. Okay, and one last thing, I think we are going to hear from our treasurer, Keta. Do you have an update for us?
Yes, we're actually fiscally sound, which is always a positive. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who the last couple meetings became recurring members, which I would call sustaining members, because the sustaining members are sustaining us. And my mom always said it was tacky to talk about money, but we can't do what we do if we don't have cash on hand. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who has become a sustaining member or a recurring member, and any amount is appreciated. We will be, as we move forward, obviously hearing what we're hearing, we're going to need a lot in our war chest to help, especially here in Orange County, because we really need to switch. We need to go back to being blue. That's just all there is to it. So thank you to everyone. And I'm here to take your money.
Thank you, Keta. And you can see that Alex dropped the link to joining and becoming a sustaining member, or joining us if you haven't done so yet. So that's in the chat. But really fantastic. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I would love for everyone to change their view to a gallery view so we can see each other again, and not just one of us. And what a fantastic evening. I appreciate all of you and everything you do. We're excited for our next meeting in October. More news to come on that. Laura Horgan, I see that you're here. Would love to hear just Laura, if you want to just say a few words from our wonderful vice chair of DPOC.
Thank you so much, Gwen. I think you've just about covered it all. But I just want to let you know that as far as DPOC goes, we have people out knocking on doors, phone banking, texting all over every inch of Orange County. So we're all in this together. And yes, thank you so much, Laguna Beach, for all of your efforts. And trust me, you're adding it to thousands more. So we're going to beat this together. And I think Orange County is going to come out bluer than ever and help our wonderful governor. So thank you so much. It was a great meeting.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you so much. And she's right, but we need to come out strong. So we cannot impress upon anybody stronger than we are tonight that this is too close, way too close, and we need to win big. We want to show and tell the Republicans and send them a big message that this isn't going to work, that we're not going to stand by and let them hijack this election and, well, the actual leadership of our state, because it really does impact the entire the United States. And I will tell you, the entire world. The world's watching this. I work with internationals. That's all I do, and partners all over the world, and they are watching this election and this recall effort. So we need to just stamp this down and make sure we keep our governor in office. So thank you all again for being here. And if everyone wants to unmute and say good night, that would be great.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you,
Thank you,
Gwen.
Gwen.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
That was an incredible meeting.
Good night, everybody.